I'm here with Julia Lynch from University of Pennsylvania. She is an expert on comparative political economy and European welfare states, and she's just the person that I want to ask a question about why it is that it seems that both the political left and the political right seem to think austerity politics is the right idea. Aren't they meant to diverge on this?
Well, left and right probably should be diverging on this issue, but over the last 20 years, the left in Europe really has moved substantially to the right on a number of issues having to do with political economy. So it seems to me that, starting with the third way, the left in Europe has really managed to convince themselves that more markets and less government is the way to go, and austerity is all of a piece with that.
Okay, so building off of that though, some people would say, but come on, the context has changed. There's globalization, there's all these new institutions of the EU. Parties no longer perform the same functions that they used to in the political economy, recruitment, socialization, all that sort of stuff. So in a sense, the consensus is the only consensus possible. Do you think that's right, or do you think there's anything in that? Or?
Well, I think it's been very difficult for anyone to articulate an alternative vision to the sort of market-driven neoliberal vision. But I think that in part is baked into the system. The fact that European unification was built around the making of a market, I think, is part of what makes it so difficult for political parties and actors like unions to really articulate an alternative vision, because the system has been set up so that it's very difficult to do that.
Let's talk about unions for a moment. When you sit in the United States, as we both do, there's a common perception of Europe as Euroland as this unionized place, and to a large extent it's true. They have big unions, large coverage. Why are they so silent in this moment?
That's a question that I think a lot of people would like to know the answer to. I think it probably depends on which unions you're talking about. Unions in some of the more export-oriented economies probably see a certain amount of restructuring, economic restructuring, and going along with that as something important to do to maintain jobs and to maintain wages for their constituencies. Unions in the southern fringe of Europe, where these are not such strongly export-oriented economies, where many more of the union members are public sector workers, it's not really clear to me why they haven't said more, except for the fact that throughout post-war Europe, they've tended to be more divided, less centralized, and less politically powerful than their counterparts in Northern Europe.
So if the unions aren't talking, the parties aren't representing, and the publics are hurting, this seems to be a sort of a recipe for the proverbial disaster. Why is it then that European politicians seem to be so united that this is in fact the solution rather than the problem?
Well, I think so far they haven't had anybody to tell them that this isn't the solution. That there really has not been a lot of political blowback from the decisions that have been made, particularly in the context of the euro crisis. And I think that until the next round of elections, until the austerity really begins to hit home, you're probably not going to see that. At this point, the public is invested in making the project work, just as the politicians and unions are. And I think in the places where you would be most likely to see some sort of rebellion, places like Greece, there are a lot of people who are old enough to remember the last revolution and who remember that it was not a pleasant thing and don't want to go back there. So I think it's going to take a little bit more hardship to generate the political blowback to get politicians to really change.
So in other words, the rebirth of European democracy depends upon things getting a lot worse.
I'm so sorry that you put it that way, but yes, I think you're right.